welcome to another Head2Head, and it's Good Morning Keith Sutherland.
Good morning, Dennis English.
We're catching up this morning, Keith, with the new council, having been, well, not declared. I don't know that it's been declared yet, but certainly looks like being elected in Bendigo.
Total surprises in two areas. I picked 7 of the 9. I couldn't pick the third one at Whipstick, and I'd picked Elise Chapman. I thought she would have got back in Lockwood Ward. So they were my two surprises. Disappointed that former Mayor Cox has gone, because I thought he was a really good councillor. So obviously there was a groundswell of opinion in Bendigo. They wanted change, they got change. 2 of 7 only get back the existing councillors, so quite a surprise.
We did say that, didn't we, in the lead up to it here, talking as we do with Head2Head, that the feeling we had was that the general population, the average punter, wanted change, end of story, as they did, and they've shown that with some of the election outcomes. And there's a lot of talk about overseas as well, but it actually happened here. And I think there'd be a couple of former councillors in shock and disbelief to a point, feeling they've given everything they did and done everything they thought that they were on the right track. To be thrown out, it would be a shock to the system, I think.
I think so, and as I said, the biggest shock to me was Councillor Chapman. She had, I think, the second most first preferences, but didn't obviously have any much deals done with second preferences and flow on from there. So she was defeated, and that was the biggest shock to me, and also Peter Cox, as I said. I think that would have been shock to him being beaten, because people at Eaglehawk love him.
Mayor, who are you tipping for Mayor then? Because you've got a couple of people there, well, for example, Rod Fife, you've got James Williams. James has probably been in there a little while and would be almost looking to have his hand up, I would have thought. But are you caring to make any predictions about who might be Mayor? It'd be unlikely, wouldn't it, that the newcomer would be Mayor?
Well, from as I understand it, there's 2 people, the existing ones. There's no doubt that Councillor Fife will put up his hand for being Mayor again. James Williams would love to be Mayor. He has mentioned that he would like it. And the only other 2 names that have been mentioned is Margot Rourke has said she's considering it. There was quite a campaign from within the community, Marg for Mayor. But I would think that it's pretty difficult for someone to step in and be Mayor. And of course, the last one was George Flack, who has said that if he's going to put his hand up to be Mayor, if he did, he'd take a wage cut of 10%. He will.
Which is what, forgive me if I'm wrong, it was around about 90-something.
92,000 is what the Mayor gets, so he'll take a pay cut on that. He wouldn't take expenses for his car, and he said he's ordered a car called the Beast, being a Mustang, and he'll be using that. So he might be the Darren Lyons of Bendigo, needs to colour his hair a little bit, but being sort of out there and flamboyant. So that's what he's suggesting that he'd be using as his mayoral car. I don't know if he said that tongue-in-cheek, but that was suggested, and so who knows, but there's possibly 4. But as I said, I don't think that 2 incoming councillors could really put their hand up, because there's a lot involved. It's all very well to look at it, but it's another
thing. Probably wouldn't hurt to have that 12 months or so under
I think
the belt.
That's what you need, and that's why I'm tipping Councillor Williams. Whether he's got the support with new councillors, hard to judge at this early stage.
Talking about that, how hard is it going to be to get support for things around this table? I know it's early days. There was a lot of talk pre-election about Greens block, and that was even across the state. There was talk about that in a number of areas, then the Greens had been and they are very transparent in terms of running a ticket and declaring the Greens name that goes with that candidate. They appear not to have had the success in Bendigo that one would have perhaps thought they might have had.
They've only got the one candidate up, which is Jen Alden for Lockwood Ward. She was the endorsed Greens candidate. The other 2 missed out. So, she's strong, and also the Yvonne Rigglesworth is very strong in the environment and areas. So that's another sort of support, but it's not really the Greens vote as such, but there is 1 of 9. So that won't happen, but at the end of the day, Jen will be a very good councillor. She's interested in health, well-being and things like that, and the environment, of course, because that's part of their platform. But yeah, it's been quite a change, and I think it's refreshing to see some new faces there.
I agree, Keith, and I'd have to ask you for this too, your thoughts. The week before the election, I made the comment on this program that the vote in terms of Julie Hoskin, whether she was voted in or not, would provide a fairly good barometer for public opinion on the mosque. Even though Julie, we had her on this program or on a program prior to the election, made it clear she wasn't running on that ticket. She was running for governance and with a whole range of other issues. So she certainly wasn't saying I'm running as an anti-mosque campaigner, and it's all pretty much dead and gone anyway. But she got in, and I just wonder what your thoughts. I know you were very much pro-mosque at the time. Do you think the fact that Julie got in is a reflection of the wider opinion, broader opinion in the community, that perhaps people were on her side 12 months ago when all that was happening?
I've got no doubts about it, and I've argued quite often that there was quite a groundswell of opinion out there that people said, oh no, it might have been 10% of the community that were anti-mosque. It was a lot more than that. And I think the sentiments have been in Julie's vote, because she got a very strong vote in the Whipstick ward. And there is no doubt that Elise Chapman, who was anti the mosque as well, got a very strong vote for Lockwood ward. So, and on the other side, Councillor Helen Leach didn't get a strong vote in Eppalock ward. So, you know, it sort of balances out, but there was two very strong people that got votes. So that sort of represents the community, that there is that opinion. You're right in saying that means nothing, because everything's approved. There's no more courts to go to. So the mosque is going to happen. I noticed that they're having a fundraising event in Melbourne to try and get some money and support for building the mosque. So yeah, let's hope. But there are changes afoot, and it'll be interesting to see how the first council works. Julie Hosking has said she wants to work harmoniously with the rest of the councillors, and I'm sure she wants to do that. Let's hope the other councillors bury the hatchet and let's move on. It's a new council, new beginning, and let's think of Bendigo, not the petty fights that we've had in that council.
Coming back to Spring Street and more locally in Victoria, Keith, what do you make of the Corrections Minister with his pooches being chauffeur-driven in the limousine, a taxpayer-funded limousine, to a country property? I mean, we talked at the time when we choked over what Bronwyn Bishop did with the helicopter, and it just makes me look, and different people were making the comment over the weekend and even yesterday, Cup Day, Melbourne Cup Day, about the sense of entitlement that seems to come with so many of these people who accept a role in public office, who so quickly appear to lose anyway, sight of the fact that they're there to be a servant of the people. And they're very honoured and they're very lucky to have been put in that position. They're not in a hierarchical sense, I don't see anyway. I don't see them as intellectually or morally or ethically more superior than the average punter. In fact, in some cases, the evidence would suggest completely the opposite is the case. But this sense of entitlement that seems to come with the jobs like that, it just blows my mind. I cannot believe that anyone would think that was an appropriate course of action. I
thought it was disgraceful. And to me, even though Bronwyn Bishop tried to hang on and ultimately was demoted from the Speaker, and I think this guy should have been demoted too. Because
well, when you're talking, I think from what I'm hearing,
it's not a lot of money, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, how childish is it that you've got to have a government car drive dogs around? That's not the use.
As far as I'm aware, you're talking a salary of around $250,000 a year and $75,000 office expenses on top of that, and yet someone can't find it within their own means to do the sorts of basic things that you and I would have to do if we went on holidays. If you're lucky enough to have a bloody holiday for a week, you've got to pay for your dogs.
Yeah, it's a joke.
There's another issue I'll touch on too. I thought we talk about the sense of entitlement. We've talked before, I've said before, I look at somebody like Joe Hockey, living a privileged lifestyle as an MP, and highly rewarded for a long time, and then a career politician, and then finding his lucky way to Washington as an ambassador, again on very attractive remuneration package. Of course, he took over from Kim Beazley, so parties got nothing to do with it here. It's a sense of entitlement and looking after each other. And then you've got Andrew Robb now becomes an advisor. To the company that's got the Port of Darwin. I just think it's just terrible. And then John Howard was right, trying to put some implementation of some structures in place that you can't be dealing with it for 18 months after you leave Parliament. Well, he's got a job. Okay, he's not supposed to be speaking to any people, ministers or government officials, but not even 3 or 4 months later. Exactly.
And this is not his first appointment, this is his second appointment.
I believe too that public servants in a similar situation are required to not take roles like that for 2 years after they've been privy.
Peter Reith did it, and also Martin Ferguson from the Labor side of politics, advising from his portfolio in minerals energy.
Again, Keith, this is why I keep coming back to this all the time, and I keep saying that the term that they're able to be elected as a Member of Parliament should be maybe 4 to 8 years, end of story. And then there should be maybe 10 years after that they can't accept a diplomatic or other government appointment, because otherwise...
I think that's a bit long, but...
otherwise it's a career thing, and it should not be a career. You're not a career politician in the sense that you're there to serve the people and reflect their requirements and their needs. That's not happening in too many cases, I would argue, at the moment. So, yeah.
And then you're getting a superannuation, a pension of something like 150, 200,000, plus the amount of money you're getting for the new job. It's just, it's a crazy system, and there needs to be some guidelines that both parties adhere to, because it's just nuts. And it's so wrong. Both sides are doing it.
You've got Beasley, you've got hockey in Washington. It works both ways. Just quickly to finish off on, Shorten appears to have done a bit of a U-turn on the asylum seeker thing. You've got Turnbull now coming out and saying with Dutton that no one on Nauru or Manus Island will ever access Australia now, in the sense that they've put it forward as having been illegal immigrants or boat people, whatever you want to call it.
Well, not illegal, you can't say that word.
No, but I mean, you know,
I know where you're coming from.
Been around a long time. And Shorten's argued the same, or made the same comment several years ago, and now he's saying it's ridiculous that Turnbull would come out with that.
I think it's a very cruel policy. I think it's wrong.
Why can't you see, though, Keith, that to do otherwise is to hold up a big sign and say, if you get a boat with a smuggler from Indonesia or anywhere else and make your way to Australia, then you can come in the back door, you can jump the queue in terms of immigration, whether you're an economic refugee looking for a better life, better quality of life, or a genuine refugee. Well, who can determine that without going through all the various requirements that are involved in that process? But it's holding up a big sign to people smugglers and people generally to say, just pay your money, get on a boat, take your risk. If you can make your way halfway here, you're home and hosed.
It's not as simple as that, because...
Why not?
The simple truth of the matter is, a lot of the people that...
But that's exactly what happened when Labor did it, though.
No. Let's just go through this. A lot of the people that are jumping on these boats, you say they're illegal immigrants, they're not. At the end of the day...
I'll say that a lot of them are economic refugees, just looking for a better quality of life.
And I understand that. But at the end of the day, people living in Syria, people living in Iraq, their places have been bombed, and we understand why they're jumping on boats to make a better life, to come to another country, because they've got no home, they've got nothing there. So why wouldn't you jump on a boat and try and get a better life for your family?
And are you arguing that Australia can...
If you lived there, you would be looking after your family first. You wouldn't be thinking, when's the next bomb coming?
And I admit that, and that's where it becomes an emotional argument.
That's what you've got to look at. That's why they are refugees leaving the country.
That's an emotional argument, though, Keith, and the reality is...
Of course, it's a reality, though.
Well, I'm looking at the news the other night, and I see Robert Doyle's been re-elected mayor in Melbourne.
For another 4 years?
Well, to see one of his main tasks, according to him, is going to be to try and overcome the homelessness problem there. The homeless problem down there, I'm down there a fair bit lately, is absolutely frightening. It's an indictment on everyone here in Australia. It's in any position of power and authority. That's a huge problem. The way we look after our elderly is also an absolute disgrace in this country.
Totally agree.
When they paid in what they have. And yet you would argue that we're better off to put up a big sign, even though we can't afford it.
No, I'm not saying that, Dennis.
And say, come in.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying this policy is inhumane, it is wrong, and for the fact is, if we bomb their countries, there's going to be refugees. What are we going to do about it? I don't agree with turning back the boats, but it does seem to have worked, and that's the answer. Not letting them come to the...
You've answered it yourself, though.
No, I'm saying not let them come to the country, but to do what they're currently doing, and the existing people that are already assimilated into the community here in Australia, they're going to be turfed out as well. How do you do that? Doctors, all sorts of people working in our community, saving lives, we're going to kick them out of the country? That won't happen.
I don't think anyone's suggesting that.
They are saying it.
He's talking about the people that are on Nauru and Manus Island now.
No, we are talking about people. Did you not watch Q&A on Monday night?
I find it difficult to watch that program because of the left-leaning that I think
it's right-leaning, from my opinion. Tony Jones allows anyone from the Liberal side to go on and on and on.
And their opinions only.
That is part of that policy. That is part and parcel, so you can't do one without the other, and that's the policy.
All right, Keith, you take care out there on the street now.
I will.
And we'll look forward to catching up with you again next week. And thank you for joining us today. We'll catch you next week as well.